Hey guys, I'm Olivia and I'm here to share with you my 19 and pregnant story.
Put your head on my shoulder. Hold me in your arms.
This was over a year ago, so I apologize if it seems kind of spotty. As you can see by the title, I am a Christian, not married, and a mom. So with that being said, 19 and pregnant. I found out about a month into my pregnancy that I was pregnant. Me and the dad were kind of at a phase where we were just like, we kind of just fell into temptation, and it was kind of like it was definitely it was almost a routine. There was a point where we made some pretty dumb decisions, and he kind of like pointed out to me like, "Hey, you haven't been on your period in a while. Your period's off." And so he was like, "Why don't you just take a pregnancy test?" In the past, I had never had like a consistent period, just because I ran cross country and I ran track and I was just super active. So I didn't ever really have a consistent month to month period. And so I wasn't that worried about it, but just for his sake, I decided to go take one. I went to the store on a lunch break um, and I got the stick and I peed on it, and it came back positive. At the time, I was working part time at a church, so seeing that I was pregnant, unmarried, and working at a church made me kind of crazy. Like, I was just super ashamed of absolutely everything, all of my, like, just my entire self. Like, I was, I was ashamed of the decisions that I had made. I was ashamed of the person I was ashamed of the person I was with. I just wasn't happy with where I was at, and I didn't want anyone to know. So I found out during a lunch break, and I video chatted the dad, which is my now fiance. I video chatted him, and I was just like, "Guess what?" And I showed him the test, and we were both just kind of like, "Wow," but like we didn't make it a big deal, I guess, in the moment. Like, I was kind of shocked, but it also wasn't a reality yet. Like, I think it was more of like oh, the stick says it, but it was super light and it could be a faulty test. There were still a few things that just made me question like the accuracy of it. We took a trip to a town like 2 hours away, where I could get tested and not worry about running into anyone, because at the time I was too embarrassed and just ashamed to like be honest with anyone, including my family and friends. So we drove 2 hours to the closest town that had like a clinic, and I got tested there. She just made me pee in a cup and came out and was just like, she was just like, "You're definitely pregnant." So I was just like kind of shocked, but I was still kind of like hopeful that I wasn't, if that makes sense. And so I got home, and for a few weeks I just kept it to myself and my boyfriend, and we were just trying to figure out what to do. As a Christian, you're kind of, I guess, assumed to do the right thing and make the right choice. And my initial response was, well, we could just get rid of this baby. If we got rid of it, no one would know that I made this choice. That was definitely my initial thought. And so I knew people who had made that choice before in their lives, and so I just kind of like, I contacted them for just advice on like how to go about it. And I went as far as making an appointment, and the closest clinic was 6 hours away. So I made an appointment, and I drove 6 hours from my home to this clinic. And the morning of the appointment, I spent the night prior, and so the morning of the appointment, I still wasn't sure what I was gonna do. Like, I knew deep down exactly what God wanted me to do, and so my response was, I guess, to kind of like either beg Him for a like huge sign that I shouldn't do this, or I was gonna do it. And so actually, the morning of, I was listening to a podcast, and it was a devotion about listening to God. So taking the time out of your day to listen to God and what He wants. And ironically enough, it was just like the perfect timing for me to just realize that I wasn't listening. And so the morning of, I called my boyfriend because I just went by myself. I called my boyfriend and I was just like, look, like right now, I don't want to do this. I don't want a baby. I don't want to be a mom. Like, there's no desire at all there for any of that. And so I just don't know what to do. Like, I don't want to do this on my own. And I called him and he goes, you just need to come home. Just don't go and come home and we'll figure this out. And I'll be there every step of the way. And so I left the morning of my appointment rather than going to the appointment. I didn't even call to cancel. I left town and I came straight home. And I was an emotional wreck the whole time. And so at that point I knew this is what I'm gonna do. This is my choice. And this was about November, the end of November. So December comes around and I definitely knew I needed to start telling my family and my friends because I didn't know what they were going to think. And I also needed to tell my job because I was working at a church. And so I actually went to my brother first, out of my family. I told him first just because we've always been pretty close. And so I went to him and I came in and I was just like, look, before I tell you, like, you have to promise me not to tell anyone. And like, this is a big deal. So I don't want you to like respond right away. I want you to like think about it. And as I'm about to tell him, he makes a joke and goes, "Oh, are you pregnant?" I was just like, yeah, bawling. And I told him I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to tell mom and dad. And I had just went to a clinic to get rid of the baby. And I knew that wasn't the right decision. But I went because of all of the shame I was feeling. And it was just so heavy and it was freaking me out. And I told him and he was there. And he was like, look, we're going to get through this. Mom and dad are going to be right with you as well. My mom noticed that there was something up with me, like just emotionally, and I wasn't really present. And she pointed it out, and I don't know what it was, if it was the hormones or I don't know what it was, but I started bawling like out of nowhere, and it wasn't even anything she said. I needed to tell her, and it just came out. It was kind of almost freeing. Like I wasn't expecting it. She was incredibly supportive, and she told my father, and they were both very supportive, and it was amazing. And so next on the list to tell was my work, my job, and I worked at a church. And so for some reason this was the hardest to do because I ironically was worried that they were going to judge me and never forgive me, which is just not right at all because it's a church. I don't know why I was thinking this, but so I told the executive pastor, like I just went straight to her, and the response was incredible. It was just so much grace and forgiveness, and it was super freeing. And so we made a deal with steps we needed to make, or I needed to make, to kind of gain back my integrity there and be able to work on staff again there. The pregnancy part of things was kind of wild. The beginning was awful. I was sick all the time, like all of the time. I threw up quite a lot. And then second trimester was pretty good. I didn't really start showing until my third trimester. And I worked full time up until I gave birth. So the midnight, it was Sunday night that I had to go into the hospital, but like Sunday night into Monday, and at midnight was when I had to be there. And it was a scheduled induction. So I actually carried the baby until 39 weeks and 4 days. So it was full term. But the baby's stomach appeared smaller. And so my doctor suggested that we do an induction just so we can take a look at that. So the night of the induction came. I went with my boyfriend, just him and I. We had to be at the hospital at 12. So I was going in thinking I wasn't going to use the epidural. It was going to be an all natural labor. Yeah, right. So, okay, so we go in at 12, we get checked in, I get to my room, they give me this beautiful gown to get into, to let me flaunt everything, and they give me some water. And the first stage was to put a pill into up there, down there, however you want to say it, to soften it up. So they did the first one. Around 4 o'clock, they put the next one in, and then I rested again. I don't know if it was 3 hours or 30 minutes. Like I said, it's been over a year. But anyways, you have to rest for a while, and you're not allowed to get up. You're not allowed to move. And so after they inserted the first one, they inserted the second one. And I got up and walked around some more, and this was when it really kicked in. It was nice because after the 2 pills, my body just kicked in, so I didn't have to take the Pitocin, which was awesome. So it got really bad, and so I heard that if you got in the tub, it could relax possibly, and I don't know. So I was just trying everything I could, and nothing else was working. So I was like, I'm gonna get into the tub. So I got into the tub, and it was the best decision I made all night. I was finally able to relax, and I think that's when it progressed because I got into the tub at 4. When they took me out, they checked me and they said, look, if you want an epidural, you need to get it now, because the doctor's leaving 1, but 2, you're going to be too far along soon. So do you want it? Do you not? And I was just like, I can't deal with pain any more than what I'm dealing with now. So yes, I want the epidural. The guy who did the epidural was talking to me the whole time. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what we talked about because I was in so much pain. I wasn't answering anyone. I was just like, hurry up, get this thing in me so I can get in bed. So they put the epidural in, they did the epidural, and they laid me up, and I was still in so much pain. And they said, it's going to take about 3 hours, and then we'll check back in on you. Let's check it now just to see where you're at, and then I'll come back in 3 hours. So they checked me, and as soon as they checked me, they said, oh, okay, you're at 10, and the baby's coming out right now. At that point, I told my mom she could come in. I had told some other people that they could come because it was going to be at least 3 hours and we could visit. But no, as soon as my mom got there, I was pushing. So they got me all set up, and it was a whole 30 minutes of pushing all together. But it was kind of broken up, so like I didn't have to push certain times. And they coached me through it, which was amazing. It was awesome. They were phenomenal. And yeah, so I pushed my baby out July 15th at 10:37 a.m. So I went in at midnight, and then at 10:37 she was born. So it was less than 12 hours of like laboring. And she weighed 5 pounds and 14 ounces. So she was full term, but she was just a tiny baby. And she was beautiful. She was perfect. And so I look back at it now, and I was just like, I'm blown away that like the idea of choosing to get rid of her even came to mind. But I also think it's important to remind yourself that like that's just like a natural like response. It's the fight or flight situation, and trust me, I wanted to run, but I chose not to, and I think it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. For the longest time, up until I gave birth, I wanted to like beat myself up because it was just like, why would I even consider getting rid of this baby? Like, I grew up in a Christian home. I knew this was something that like wasn't thought of. So like, why was I even considering it? I really didn't know like what God was thinking of me, because it was like super easy to believe that he was just like disappointed and wasn't interested in me anymore, because I didn't even want to listen to him and what he had to say about the situation. And since making the decision to keep this baby, like I've been blessed in like so many ways. I have my job back at the church now, and I have a family who loves and cares for me, and I have a ton of friends and family who are just extremely supportive. Anyways, this was just kind of like a basic, I guess like not super in depth, but my pregnancy story, and then also my birth story almost too. I kind of got into, but I just want to like say that like if you're out there and you're a Christian that's not married and pregnant, that you will get through this. If you're worried about what other people think, I mean, it's not their place to judge, one, but two, if they're true Christians, like they're going to love you no matter what, and they're going to support you no matter what, and they're not going to judge you. They're just going to do everything they can to make sure that you feel and know that like God loves you. And I think that's like the most important thing to remind yourself, is that like making the right decision and like the hardest time in your life is like crucial almost, because yeah, you've messed up getting up to this point, and yeah, it'd be really easy to make the wrong decision again just to get out of it one last time. But there's a reason that God's giving you this baby. There's a reason why you're pregnant, and so God has a plan for this baby that you have, and He wants to use this baby in big ways. And who are you to take that away from Him? So with that being said, thanks for watching.
Put your head on.